am entering the world of rankings on YouTube. I know there will be people who don't agree with what I say and who will say, but how did you place this one? But how did you place that one? Well, they are opinions. You can put them in the comments box and we can discuss them there, okay? Come on. Always with good humor and respect and such, like you usually do, naturally. And I am going to say here, the 5 best players for me in the history of Real Madrid, the top 5. Do you want to watch it? Let's begin. Welcome, Madridistas. You already know we are in an injury break. Let's hope the FIFA virus treats us well this time and that when Madrid plays again, they don't have that typical slump they always have after these kinds of breaks. Although that match against Athletic Club will be postponed. And by the time they play again, they will have forgotten about it. It will be like a mini preseason, right? Well, let's see how it goes for us there. The point is, we are here to name, in my case. The 5 best footballers, in my opinion, in the history of Real Madrid, okay? Let's get started. I know I'm going to leave out many, and you'll tell me, but how could you not include this one, that one, or the other? And many would deserve to be in that top 5. I must say that later I will make an ideal 11 in Real Madrid's history, and there will be 6 more. Someday, we can even make a top 20, okay? To include those that you think should be there. Moreover, it really bothers me not to include among the top 5 some football players who I think, due to their significance, due to their involvement with Real Madrid and their impeccable behavior, should be there. But we are not here to include those who behaved impeccably during their time at the club, but rather the importance they have had, right? In the titles, in the finals, in their long career, in the team, for all this. Come on. Number 5, Iker Casillas, who I think could even be a little higher, A little higher. Some might say to me, what are you talking about? And Keylor Navas, the 3 consecutive Champions Leagues. And Courtois, who is great. Well, Courtois has only been here for 2 days. He's very good. Maybe technically better than Iker. Even Bodo Illgner, who, by the way, great guy. I met him at beIN Sports. Really a great person. I was at his house doing a... Look, someday I'll show that interview with Bodo Illgner, He also talked about Casillas. Great guy, the German. I mean, with a family. Wonderful. There were things back in the day. His wife, Bianca, and I don't know what. Spectacular. I am grateful to them, but we are not here to talk about Illgner, who could perfectly be among the best goalkeepers in the history of Real Madrid. And yet, well, there's Casillas ahead. Let's see. Iker Casillas. All the titles he has achieved at Madrid, how decisive he has been in many of them, and especially for uniting 2 great periods in the history of Real Madrid, the 8th and the 9th. In the 8th, he was the starting goalkeeper at 18 years old. In the 9th, if it weren't for him, it wouldn't have been won in Glasgow against Bayern Leverkusen. In the 10th, that Madrid has gone many years without winning another Champions. In total, 12 years, no less. And there was Iker. And while Iker, during all that time, Iker leads the Spanish national team through the best era of any national team in football history. Because yes, it is clear that we are here judging what a footballer has done with Real Madrid. But you also have to consider what he did with the national team and the importance that holds within such an emblematic club in the history of Europe, in the world, and especially in Spain, like Real Madrid. Because also, Iker has that, he connects those 2 eras, right? You're going to tell me. In the 10th, he conceded that goal by Godin. It was a terrible exit and all. Or yes, it wasn't his best match, okay? But even in the Mourinho era, which was the... Well, Iker had gotten past the Mourinho phase. This is now with Ancelotti, and Ancelotti puts him in for the Champions. And I think Iker performs well in the Champions League, not in the final, because he doesn't have a great final, but well, Real Madrid ends up winning it. And he connects those 2 eras, as I say. And in the middle, when he was succeeding with the national team, it was not a good period for Real Madrid because it coincided with the emergence of Guardiola's Barça, but Iker was a miraculous goalkeeper. He had a special charm. And I insist, for all the titles he has won, for the importance he has had, for being an absolutely indispensable figure in the history of Real Madrid, I give him the 5th place. And for being the only goalkeeper, I believe that in this top 5, there had to be a goalkeeper. And, well, if Iker is already being considered by many experts, and I think so too, perhaps as the best goalkeeper in history due to titles and influence, not only for Real Madrid, but of course, by the way, in those light and shadow moments, aside from, we may agree with Mourinho or not, but Mourinho is a guy who, during his time at Real Madrid, didn't really convince me too much. But then I watched a documentary about Mourinho at Tottenham, and I start to review the era of the Portuguese coach at the White Club and how he defended the club that way. But there are things that bring me a little closer to Mourinho today than they did back then. And surely in relation to Iker Casillas, if he wasn't training as he should have been, and if he wasn't as good a captain as he needed to be, well, maybe he was right. Mourinho. But we are not going to take that into account there, which for me, that's why, as I said, he's at number 5. Let's go with number 4. Number 4, Sergio Ramos. In that sense, as good Sergio would say, 4 Champions Leagues, huh? The leagues he has won, though he could have won more, and the influence that he has had in this team. There was a moment when, and we all know, beyond, I insist, the light and shadows aside, which now I speak of, but the influence he has had on this team in finals, finals, semi-finals, quarter-finals. A central defender who becomes a goal scorer and who also, in many of the seasons, he has been with Real Madrid, and with the Spanish national team. He has been the best central defender in the world. I think there's no doubt, right? Because also on this list, there has to be a defender. Because I mentioned before with Iker, there had to be a goalkeeper and there has to be a defender. And also, Sergio Ramos has been a special defender. I think it's beyond question that Sergio has to be in this top 5. For everything he has been. Now, he could have avoided many little things. The influence of his brother as his agent, those controversial renewals, the last one was unfortunate. Offers from China that he makes up, well, really unpleasant things. But as a captain, he was a guy who raised his voice and had what a captain has to have, right? On the field and off, right? I think he has been absolutely impeccable there. Beyond that, on many occasions, someone as good as he is, I think that, in a few, because most of the time he performed well, but sometimes he had those lapses, and I believe it was because he relied too much on how good he is. And we have seen big mistakes in matches, and also important ones, but then, you know what? He would correct his mistakes too. I think it's indisputable. Come on, I don't know what you all think. Put it in the comments box. Ramos has to be number 4. Let's move on to number 3. Raúl González. What's up with Raúl González? Well, Raúl arrives at a moment, and he becomes very important in the history of Real Madrid. And he does it with someone daring like Valdano. Beyond other considerations about Valdano, okay? But Valdano was as daring as Guardiola was too. Beyond the considerations about Guardiola, when he starts with Barça and brings out Pedrito, Busquets and so on, he was daring with Raúl. Year 1994. I remember perfectly also in the game where he gives him the opportunity in a forward line that had Zamorano, Amavisca. And Raúl arrives and plays that match at La Romareda and misses goals almost in front of an open goal. And Valdano keeps trusting him and says, watch out, this boy has spectacular goal intelligence, he has something. Valdano sensed it. And Raúl, furthermore, is very symbolic because it was the era when the Quinta del Buitre was already fading. And he leads a new generation with Guti, with Alvaro Benito. There was also Lisandro, the Canary Islander, who played like an angel, but he wasn't lucky. And Raúl he bursts in there like a whirlwind, like a bull in a china shop. It was something tremendous. Then it's true that fame, success, kept away some bad moments during those years. But Raúl was 2 years after having debuted with Virchoat, the Juve defender, in a Champions match, putting his face here and saying, what? I mean, a 19-year-old, right? It's just that, Raul was very advanced. And he's a guy who is important in the 7th, in 98, in the final with Mijatovic's goal, also against Juve, very important in the 8th. That goal, with that tremendous run, the pass from Savio Bortolini after a corner, that I think it was a corner taken by Valencia, because they were already desperate, because they were losing 2-0 in that final in Paris, in which I was. I was at that final, at the final in Paris. And I saw Raul from the goal where he scored against Canizares. I saw Raul coming, who was not a very fast guy, but you have to see how he kept the ball controlled, and close to his foot in that crazy run with Djukic chasing him, and ends dribbling past Canizares and putting it in with his right foot. Very important also in the final, I insist, in the one in Glasgow, not to mention. He scores the first goal, a clever goal, a smart goal, an intelligent one, like Benzema did many years later. In the Kiev final of Real Madrid's 13th, you have to be there, and you have to do that. And Raul did it. And wow. And then came a time when he had to endure, well, the same as Casillas and the same as Guti endured. The bad years, right? The post-galactic or almost galactic and post-galactic years. There was no way to win anything there, right? Especially internationally. Because even so, Raul's Madrid won the 2007 leagues with Capello. And 2008 with Schuster, right? And, well, I think Raul had to be there for what he represents, I insist, symbolically. And for what he is, moreover, as a Spanish player. It's true that we have 3 Spaniards, right? But Raul also manages to be the top scorer of the champions until Cristiano and Messi came along, and then Lewandowski, and then Benzema, right? But he manages to be the top scorer of the champions. A boy who wasn't exactly... he was an amazing goal scorer. I mean, it was not his greatest specialty. It was said of Raul that he was practically an 8 in everything, and especially, well, of Mai, having a perfect 10 in intelligence when it comes to knowing how to move within a pitch and sniffing out goals, right? And he was Mr. Champions before all these others came, right? In the top competition, the most important one. And he is fundamental in the second great era of Real Madrid's history. The first is, in the mid-20th century. The other is between the 20th and 21st century. That's where Raul is. And the next one is the recent one. The one with the 4 champions in 5 years. Because there is another fundamental one, and it will be number 2, Cristiano Ronaldo. I think it is. Without a doubt, Cristiano had to be here, but there will already be someone saying, how can you not put him first? I will explain. I will explain. Under normal conditions, Cristiano should be first. The top scorer in the history of Real Madrid, and then everything he has achieved. The top scorer of the Champions League, in the history of the Champions League. The 4 Champions Leagues, he has 5, 1 more with Manchester United. Not just because of that, because he has 1 less than the one who will be first, whom you're probably already imagining. Not just because of that, he is second. I insist, under normal conditions, the first. But he is the most important footballer of the second most important era in terms of titles, principally in the history of Real Madrid. And there is something he lacks compared to the first, and I will explain it when I talk about the first one. Okay? But well, Cristiano, there's no need to say anything about Cristiano. I've already said everything I've said. And then with his national team, he also won a title at the European Championship in 2016, and then became the top scorer in the history of the Portugal national team and the history of national teams. Achieving it in the Portugal national team, which is not one of the leading ones. Portugal does not have a World Cup, although it is one of the mid-high level national teams in the world, right? But, well, what can we say about Cristiano? Also, decisive in the final stages of the Champions League, right? And in that terrible battle with Messi, well, he, in the Champions League, one was here and the other was here. Whether we like it or not, that's another discussion. The thing with Messi and Cristiano, okay? The talent that is made and formed, and the professionalism and all that, Cristiano is impeccable. He is the most professional footballer who has been on any squad in the history of Real Madrid, and deserves to be second, because there is someone who surpasses him in football. Understand what I'm going to say? Okay? If we compare Cristiano with the one who is going to be number 1 in terms of quality, objectively, in terms of technical quality, and 1,000 other things, and physical and all that, Cristiano is here. Above anyone else, because football evolves. Because the football played in the middle of last century, is not the football of today. It is was much worse. Okay? And Cristiano, in some way, He inaugurates the new era of the athlete footballer, of the footballer also physically prepared. Almost designed, right? Even though nobody has designed Cristiano, he has designed himself. But in the number one spot is Alfredo Di Stefano. Di Stefano's influence was different. Besides, he was in an era when Madrid won 5 consecutive European Cups. Alfredo Di Stefano was everything in the club because Madrid was nobody until his arrival, right? The figure of Bernabeu has a big influence here. We will talk about the presidents and coaches another day, okay? But Bernabeu brought Alfredo Di Stefano to Real Madrid, who would have gone to Barca if not ready, okay? And Alfredo Di Stefano was a complete footballer on the playing field, and he's the one who changes the history of this team, although these are people who will be missing from this list too. Copa, Puskas, Gento, right? They're missing here. And I'm sorry they're missing, right? Maybe they'll be in the 11, right? Or in the top 20. But Di Stefano is a representative of that era. And he was accompanied by Galacticos of that time too, right? But Alfredo Di Stefano was the most representative and, well, the one who stood out above them. I think there's no doubt about that. He is the one who made that leap in quality. No one had made such a big leap in quality, right? Pelé hadn't appeared yet. Di Stefano is before Pelé. They almost became contemporaries, if I remember correctly, but Di Stefano is earlier, right? And many say it's that Pelé physically gives that leap in quality. I think even before that, it's Di Stefano. Not so much physically, but in terms of hierarchy on the playing field and as a complete footballer. Then Cruyff would arrive with the great modern footballer, right? The step from the old footballer to the modern footballer. Pelé is what I've told you, the physique suddenly of a guy, although maybe it was also Garrincha before, right? In Brazil. But Pelé is that before it was Di Stefano. And many people don't remember Di Stefano because it was a long time ago. But the thing is, Di Stefano was his... How could you put Di Stefano as number one? I didn't see him play live. I've watched videos and people have told me about him. But it seems to me that in history, he has a slightly greater weight than Cristiano. I hope no one gets upset, okay? I don't think anyone will get upset. And well, this is where we've come to. I really appreciate your attention. It turned out a bit longer than I thought, actually, and I get carried away talking and don't stop. Hope it goes well for you. See you in the next video. Comment here in the comment box with what you didn't agree with, what you did. Subscribe, please. Like it, which is very important for the algorithm, and share. Please share to keep growing in this community. I appreciate it a lot because we are growing very quickly, and it's something I didn't expect in this way, and it fills me with pride and satisfaction, as the other would say. Bye.